Woo! Beauty.
All right, welcome everyone. I am so excited and delighted to have you all here. I wanted to start with a couple of images of the work of the incredible Anne Morgan, just so you know that if her name is not familiar to you, her work certainly is. We are incredibly excited to have this opportunity to chat with her this evening. I got to know Morgan at least, over email. We were introduced at the top of the year in the before times when Women in Film was getting ready to host its annual Oscar party. And from the very beginning, Morgan kind of, held my feet to the fire justifiably and said, what is Women in Film doing for people in below the line roles? Like, what are you as an organization doing to uplift and celebrate and advance the careers of women in below the line positions? And so I'm delighted that we continue to have that conversation and that she agreed to join me for this conversation here tonight, so we can talk about that issue, because it is a vital part of our work. It is not just the directors whose names that you know. It is not just the writers whose names that you enjoy that make it to the screen, who contribute to the worlds that we immerse ourselves in. So again, I'm just really excited to have this conversation with her tonight. Welcome to everyone who's here in the Zoom room. Welcome to everyone who's watching us on Facebook for, again, this incredible opportunity to talk to Oscar, BAFTA, Critics' Choice Award winner, a hair designer for film and TV, Anne Morgan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ebony Adams. I'm the manager of public programs for Women in Film, where we are committed to amplifying and celebrating the careers of all women in the screen industries. For tonight's session of Conversations and Connections, we're going to be talking to Morgan, a woman who's at the top of her field, whose technical mastery and creative genius are definitely sure to inspire you. So as a reminder, for those of you who have been to these before, for those of you who are new, Morgan will be taking questions about her career, about her work, about her perspectives on the industry, but you don't want to wait till the end of the event to be sharing those questions. You can be sharing those, posting them throughout the event. You can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window for that, or you can post in Facebook chat and we'll migrate them over to here. So now, without further ado, I want to introduce you to our guest and our host for this evening. Anne Morgan is 2020's Academy Award, BAFTA, Critics' Choice, and Guild winner for hairstyling in the feature film Bombshell. Before she recreated Fox News hair, Anne has been behind some of the most famous hairstyles in film and television. From Gangs of New York to Walk the Line and Lemony Snicket, Anne's work is critical in creating a character in an era that instantly and emotionally pulls the audience into that scene. Her research goes even deeper than any history book or biography and is about making a world through, quite literally, snippets of hair. She's also delved into streaming television, most notably HBO's True Detective, and was Emmy nominated for HBO's All the Way. Most recently, her work can be seen on the amazing period limited series Mrs. America on Hulu for FX. Coming this December from Paramount Pictures is Top Gun, and yes, she created that hairdo for There's Something About Mary. Talking with her this evening is Kirby Johnson, LA-based beauty journalist, on-camera host, and producer, who's had 9 years in the digital beauty and entertainment space. She co-hosts Los Angeles, a beauty podcast, and has interviewed celebrities like Jennifer Aniston, Viola Davis, Nicole Kidman, Rihanna, Mariah Carey, as well as industry experts like B. Neal, Pat McGrath, Charlotte Tilbury, and more. She's also written an original series based on her experience in the beauty industry, and in the process of writing 2 more. I am so excited to welcome both of you here. I can't wait to listen in to the conversation. I'm going to try and hold myself back from taking up all the Q&A time by posting my questions in the Q&A button. But now I'm going to turn it over to you, Kirby.
Thank you, Ebony. And by the way, Women in Film is so lucky to have Ebony. She is incredible, has been so much fun working with just via email. I hope I get to meet her IRL one of these days. And Morgan, so amazing to meet you virtually.
With my phone ringing over. Sorry about that. Hi, Kirby. Thank you.
You do go by Morgan, just to put it out there. I'm not calling her just by her last name. This is her name. So I just want to say, for someone like me, a beauty journalist, seeing your incredible work, it really is amazing to think of your career. And from start to finish, if you go to your IMDb page, some of the names of the movies and the series that you've worked on, my jaw drops. Obviously Ebony named so many that you are known for, but there's actually a movie that is my absolute favorite that you worked on that I had to just bring up. Do you want to guess what that means?
I'm gonna guess what it is. Okay, this is like, I don't even know you, Kirby, right? Okay, this is random. This is my guess. Is it Sweet Home Alabama?
Oh my God. Okay, that's funny. I do love Sweet Home Alabama, but
Okay,
my
no, it's not that.
favorite movies of all time, My Best Friend's Wedding.
Oh, okay. I debated saying My Best Friend's Wedding, but then I thought maybe by age you might have just been okay.
Julia's hair in that movie is iconic, like just so beautiful. And the fact that you worked on that movie just makes me feel like you and I would be best friends once we get to meet each other in real life. So very happy to hear that.
Yeah, it has one of my favorite scenes in that movie is the scene with about Jello. Do you know what scene I'm talking about?
Gonna be Jello. You're never gonna be Jello. I hear you.
It's literally.
So let's kick things off. We went through your accolades and all of the incredible pieces of work that you've worked on, but let's go back to the beginning. What really inspired you to get into this industry? Was it happenstance? Did you initially want to work with hair? And I would really love to know, like, how has the makeup and hair artistry field evolved since you got your start?
Uh-huh. Um, let's see. I'd say that originally my interest lay with makeup. And when I was younger, still in school, like as in elementary, junior high school, I was always like, I loved that. And I had an experience where I went to Universal Studios in 4th grade and got to see somebody being done up like Abe Lincoln, and it really affected me. And I always thought I wanted to do makeup. And I thought you had to go to cosmetology school, of which my parents were living in Texas. I went to Texas to go to cosmetology school. And the second day there, it was like, oh, you don't have to have a license to do makeup? Wait a second. But I liked doing hair too. And I really took to it. And I think there's something about architecture of hair, because I'm fascinated by architecture just in life. So there is something about perspective and the tangible qualities of forced perspective that you use with hair and on film. So anyways, that's kind of blah, blah, blah. And I worked in a salon, and then my best friend was a model, and I wanted to do fashion. I was always into fashion. That's what I thought I wanted to do. And then I was, getting started in my career in that for a good almost 10 years, and did a little bit of film work. And, at a certain point at that time, you had to, and you asked me how the industry changed. At the time when I entered film work, which would be like, let's just say it's like 1990, probably half of the people on here weren't even born, but anyway, but in like something around 1990, the crossover of working in fashion and film was non-existent. And there is more of that now. But now with social media and the joining of, like, say, television and film, that's another kind of crossover. So, it was very separate. Film was one world, television is separate. There's still a lot of that goes on. Um, but that was very separate. Fashion was very separate. And for me, I was, young, and I really wanted, I was up with what was happening around. And so I think that was something that crossed over for me at the time, bringing into the industry. I hope that kind of answers the question. Maybe too long-winded.
No, it's perfect. What would you say your big break was?
My big break. Well, always getting to work on the first films. Um, but I would say my big break. Well, I started out as personal requests, not running departments, because you couldn't work in the industry unless you were a personal request if you weren't union. And so Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz uh, began requesting me. Also, Ann Archer was an actress that came around really big into the 80s. She was in Fatal Attraction, and she brought me onto a lot of things. And so it was just that kind of thing. But I have to say, it's between Jim and Cameron, like the choices that they made in their body of work allowed me to work on projects that were great. Truman Show, My Best Friend's Wedding, Something About Mary, Me, Myself, and Irene. I mean, these are, all different kinds of Lemony Snicket. I mean, Gangs of New York. And these are things that I got to work on because these actors asked for me to be there, because they trusted me, and we had a good, repartee. And then, and then it worked on to other actors, Reese Witherspoon, or, I mean, many, different ones. So I don't know if there's any one moment.
Well, I only bring it up because I was looking at your repertoire, and you have this consistency with the actors that you work with. Jim Carrey stood out to me, Cameron stood out to me, Jennifer Connelly stood out to me. And you're still working with Jennifer. I mean, you did Top Gun, that's coming out this December. So, I feel like, especially with the position that you're in, as a hairstylist, there's so many facets to it. There's the art, and then there's the relationship with the client. I feel like you probably hear a lot of things, you see a lot of things. You kind of also have to read social cues very well, to understand not only what the client's feeling and how they're going to respond that day, but also like everybody working around you, makeup artists, directors, things like that. Can we talk about the collaboration process?
Yeah.
And what it's like on a movie? What is it like between hair and makeup? And then what is it like between directors and hair?
Yeah. I think in starting off on any given project, if I'm going to be there with an actor or an actress, if I'm there with an actor, that I'm going to be, I'm first going to be probably speaking with them. I'll read the script, I'll speak with them, then I'll speak with the director. And I try and take what I know about the actor, what they have to say, my own opinion, and hear what the director has to say. And I try and take those things and mix them together in a way that I think is going to be successful. If I'm not there with an actor first, it will be the script and the director. Second to that is, yes, I work with makeup, but I say that I take less of my direction from my makeup cohort, and more from the direction of, because my work is silhouette.
Yeah.
So my silhouette plays into the silhouette of costume. So I would say the second person after the director, the third person, I suppose, the director, actors, and then the costume designer. And I try and take all of that into account. And the makeup artist that I'll be working with is likely themselves taking what they need to take, and then we come together and we say, like, this is what I'm creating, what can you, what are you doing, and what do you think? And then we meld those two together. And depending upon who you work with, your collaboration can be less vocal or very vocal. And it just depends on the person. I have certain makeup department heads or other makeup artists that I work with. I don't say anything, but we're so on the same page, you know? Or I have other ones that I work with, and I could like come across the room and be like, you know, I was thinking the hair is going to be like really white blonde, and you know, would make it look really, you know, blah blah is, or were you going to do a tan, or were you thinking you might do a tan? And it's just like a repartee. It is not to step on anyone's toes. It's about collaboration. And in the US, we work separately, makeup and hair, as two different teams. In Europe, it is a common person, you know, one person that's designing makeup and hair. So it's rare that we get that opportunity. And there's nothing less doing one versus the other, you know, one version versus the other. It's just a little bit different dynamic.
That's amazing. All right, I want to talk about your process because, as Ebony mentioned, snippets of hair. That I just imagine you with like a book with like snippets of people's hair that you just like. Okay, this might enter the vibe. So let's talk about this research process. Like any good creative, you do your research, and it's not about you. It's about what fits the movie, the TV series, whatever it is. Where's the first place you start? Loaded question, Morgan. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just trying to think. It's not so loaded. It's maybe it's more complex, the answer, but I would say it's not that complex, but I mean, I would say, okay, I read the script and I'll immediately have my own take on it. I've traveled all of my life, so I've seen a lot of different places that something would take place on, you know, take place in or something. I try and bring, you know, my own history to, like, you know, obviously that does, like anything, you know, you read a book and your own imagination takes over, right? So same with the script. So everything is kind of coming along like that. Then I hear from the actor, or maybe the actor has an image, maybe they don't. Let's say they don't have anything to say. The director may have an image, but usually what I begin to do is, depending upon the piece, if it's contemporary, I may like start to think of, oh, okay, this girl lives in, let's talk about my best friend's wedding. Let's talk about my best friend's. We'll use that as an example. You might appreciate that. So a choice that we made for Cameron is that she lived in Chicago. She was, you know, silver spoon fed and educated, and, you know, is going to have a specific upbringing. So the moment we meet Cameron on film is in the yellow dress. Jeffrey Curlin, the costume designer, incredible costume designer, incredible. Jeffrey's got this yellow dress, and I've been made aware of the yellow dress. Like, we know she's going to wear a yellow dress. But before I've even gotten to Chicago to shoot, and we're thinking about, you know, her look or whatever, the cut is one thing, you know, bringing it up. And she's kind of, you know, she's a college girl. She's not edgy, you know, she's not rumpled up like Julia's character will be. And the other choice that is an interesting thing is that her hair color of the blonde is a specific kind of blonde. So if you're a blonde and you live in London, you're a blonde, you live in LA, a blonde that lives in New York, a blonde that lives in Chicago, there's a different kind of blonde. Some are more yellow, some are more white, some are more frosty, some have deeper roots, like this kind of thing. Yeah. So the choice of that. So my exploration began with like, okay, I'm going to start looking at girls that are from Chicago and the kind of blonde that is, and the color of the light in Chicago is different than the blue light of the ocean that gets warm in the afternoon in LA, or the cold light of New York. So it affected the blonde that she would be. So I'm saying that you begin with the character, where they live, what their life is, and you begin to do your research based on that. You don't just randomly say, oh, I want to do this hairdo on Cameron Diaz.
Totally.
That's not it. You are thinking of Kimmy. Kimmy is going to have her hair like this, and she's going to, you know, she doesn't have roots. She's never going to have roots. It's going to be blonde. and
Exactly.
it's going to be perfectly cute, you know? So, so anyways, so I always start with the character, and my research comes from libraries. It comes from anything, Pinterest boards. You know, there's a beautiful Motion Picture Academy has a gorgeous library on La Cienega. It's just beautiful, and you can go there and you can do research, and the Pickford, and there's many ways, but I pull from everything.
Can you talk about creating Gloria Steinem?
Yeah. So, you know, what's interesting about that character is that, so you're going to do a project, and that project I was made aware of well in advance of when they would begin shooting,
Okay.
knowing that we needed to have many wigs in production to travel the course of time for each of those characters, those women that were being represented. And we didn't want the wigs to be what we would be waiting on.
Yeah.
So I'm starting ahead of time. The character that everyone knows that's the most iconic is Gloria Steinem.
Of course.
And so the attention to making that hair feel as though it's coming out of Rose Byrne's head, and how that would organically look like her, and recreate that time period in a way that was, you know, very realistic, not beautied out, but realistic. You know, we tried to give that element to the project, you know, a natural quality about it. So in designing that hair, you know, Rose Byrne's face, her features, her frame is much, it's very fine. um, Gloria Steinem's features are more broad. She has got a stronger jawline. She has bigger eyes. She has broader shoulders. She's a taller girl. You know, there's things about woman. So there are things about Gloria Steinem that when she wore all that hair, you know, there were things about her scale that carried that off. And it's a time period that when women wore their hair, you know, it came out of the 60s of the teasing. So, and she was not a bohemian, you know, she was not a hippie. So it was a fine line to figure out, giving the texture, the volume, um, the size of it. And she wore hair in her face and the glass, you know, it was like, it's a lot. Rose mastered the ability to work with that hair on her face, like, you know, functioning with it with the glasses. And it was a challenge. It was a big challenge. And Rick Finlater, who was the department head on the show, did an amazing job. He was there with her every moment on camera to make sure that what we had designed and created, you know, wasn't gonna swoop over Rose.
Exactly. You did an incredible job. You mentioned you wanted it to look like it was growing out of her own head. You're not taken out of the show by watching Rose. You're not thinking, "Oh, she's wearing a wig,"
Yeah.
and that's the end goal always.
Yeah, yeah, it is. You don't want it to be distracting unless that's on purpose. But yeah, I'm very proud of having worked on Mrs. America. It was a huge challenge, and so many incredible women. So thanks.
You're so welcome. I want to ask about challenges you've faced. Maybe we just talked about one when it comes to making a wig look realistic, but what would you say is the biggest challenge that you face? I have one that I'm thinking of, but I'm curious what your answer is going to be.
Time. Time is always the challenge. Time is the challenge. I learned a long time ago that you have to say what it is that you need for the time that you need for the prep. Because if you do your prep, and no matter what they throw at you in the moment of any given day, oh, it's raining, we're going to have to switch to this. Oh, we're going to switch scenes, we're going to go to this. Oh, the camera's ready faster than 45 minutes. Like we told you, it's only been 5, but we're ready. We're waiting on you. Like, time is always the challenge. Time happens to be my Achilles heel in life. It is a funny thing that I chose something that would be so time challenged, but that is the thing. And to be most vocal with productions about what it is that you need. Often people will say, oh, I can get a wig ready in 24 hours. Sure, you can get a wig ready in 24 hours. I wonder what that wig ends up looking like. And I wonder how much you're tortured every moment you're trying to make it work, how much you're sweating every other moment, and what other things are at a loss that you are responsible for because you didn't have what you needed. And you value a line producer, a production manager who understands that, and you try and find a balance with the AD team, because their job is to keep a schedule, and it's almost always destined to be a contentious relationship because their job is to keep it on schedule, and your job is to keep the look consistent and what everyone is expecting and timely.
Okay, so that's what I was going to say. I was going to say
Sure.
continuity has to be a big one as well. Um, we're running out of time for our interview because I'm looking, we have so many questions. Do you see these questions popping up? I don't think you
No.
can see them. I can. I'm so excited that there are so many amazing questions.
Oh,
But I do want to get to advice that you want to give younger creatives. I think a lot of people here are hearing you talk about like the time that you need to get ready, but maybe they're thinking, well, how do I relay that if I'm relatively new in this industry and I don't have the stature in the industry as Morgan? So, any advice in terms of maybe getting started and then advocating for yourself, which I think is also super important right now.
yeah. Okay. So they play into each other. So first of all, whenever you get a job, let's say, and this is happening often now because there are a lot of films that projects that shoot in places that are right to work states and or places where you have people living that don't have the experience or the training, but they're getting the jobs, right? There was pre-COVID, so much work and so many things happening. So let's say you get the department head position. My main recommendation is you must fill your department with other people that do things better than you. You must fill your department with your flaws. If I can't, eh, let's see, if I need someone to barber hair, I'm going to make sure somebody in my department is going to be a barber. If I need someone who's great at wigs, because I'm not great at wigs, I'm going to have somebody there that's going to be great at wigs. I'm going to have somebody that's great with continuity and organization. Your key, your second in command is your point person. They are your support. You have to make sure you don't hire your friend. You hire the person that's the best person for the job. You fill your department with all the things that make your department the strongest department.
Okay.
So that's that. And advocating for yourself, speaking up for yourself, you have to make sure you have a vocal, and a good relationship with your production manager and your line producer where you're speaking with them about what you need. That means you do the research, you look at the script, you do your breakdown, you figure it out. And one thing I want to say is that often what's happening is there seems to be an interjection of ADs having to run our departments because people don't do the work in the departments to, run their own department. And so the ADs are saying, oh, you're going to have 5 minutes for your touch up, or you're going to have, but what you have to say is, I need 10 minutes to get done what needs to happen. And, you just have to speak up. You have to have a vocal, understanding and communication.
Totally. I want to talk about COVID. I feel like we'd be remiss not to talk about this right now, obviously. Have you been working, since the pandemic? And, what are some protocols and things that you guys are taking, not seriously, obviously you're taking seriously, but what are some protocols that you guys are ensuring happen on set?
Right. One, there were the white papers that were issued by each craft and different guilds that collectively all came together. And it was just this week that the studios finished the negotiations with the collective DGA, Producers Guild, IATSE, Teamsters, Craft Services, like everybody, SAG, Like we all got together to negotiate as one with the studios to ensure what they were responsible for and what we felt was safe. So our representation collectively did that. That happened earlier this week. It is now finished. That to me means that we now should be able to see studios going ahead, green lighting, beginning of things to get up and going now. That's what that means to me.
Okay.
Have I worked? Yes, I did work on a commercial. My film went down that I was prepping, so that is gone. And I was consulting on another project while I was prepping on the other, and that is getting ready to shoot, but I was only consulting. So I'm waiting and hoping that I have something. I had some interest for some things, and yeah, there's a couple little things. I'm doing something for Sony to help them in the beginning of October. So on something good, but yeah, so I think the protocols are defined, and it's up to each production, and most importantly, each person of a department, you have to run your own area in a way that is conscious of the protocols.
I'm just curious. This is not a question that we have here, but I'm curious, how do you think this is going to affect your work day to day when you are back on set? You know, like obviously masks, obviously, PPE, but is it gonna affect you being able to go on and, fix things?
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I had friends who were finishing up on a feature, a really incredible feature. I have some friends on another feature that's shooting, and another one, of different scales, right? And even myself, in the experience I had on this commercial that I did, and we had some specific things that we were tasked with on this commercial. Um, wearing a shield, wearing a mask, it's impossible to see. You can't breathe. I mean, it's a really difficult thing. It adds time. You've got to clean everything up. So the productions are faced with, again, a time constraint. But I think quite a few years back, after the writer's strike, there was a squishing of schedules because accountants stepped into positions at studios in a more prominent manner. And I felt like productions got 2 weeks shorter. And it really put the pressure on for our hours to be really high. I've talked about it before on Mrs. America. I averaged 93 hours a week. It
Wow.
was for 5 months. It was brutal. And so I would just say that time is going to be the thing that is going to be tough.
All right. Last question before we get into these other questions, which are amazing. I'm so excited. I want to thank everybody for sending in these amazing Q&As. A big industry issue that is getting increasing attention this year is the lack of sufficient numbers of Black hair designers for Black actors. So, what are your Black colleagues saying, and what are women such as yourself doing to kind of address this as an ally and bridge that gap?
Yeah. I think that what has been the issue is that for so long, the unions wouldn't allow anyone in. Like it didn't matter. It wouldn't matter Black or white in my viewpoint. It took me like 5.5 years to get in. I couldn't get in. So that's been my experience. And then as we move along, and now you have a situation where, thank God there's material where Black actors have, Black characters have representation in storytelling more and more. And hopefully not just Black, but brown and yellow and everybody, and straight, gay, whatever. But as far as the issue with Black hairdressers, I have always felt, like I said before, that it is your responsibility to fill your department with people that satisfy the needs of telling the story. So if I'm white or I'm Black, I believe that it is our responsibility as hairstylists in film to not show up with one ability or another. But there's some people that are going to be better at the job, like I just said before, than others. So I can barber a Black man's hair. Do I think I'm the best Black barber? or, barber for black men's hair? No, I do not. I think that there are incredible barbers to bring in and give the work to and allow them to rise in not only notoriety, but the ability to work and be a part of the fabrication of our community. It is absolutely necessary. And whether that's a barber or if that's someone who's amazing with black hair in particular, I think it's important that we employ those people to be a part of our storytelling community. And that same person that can do black hair needs to be able to do white hair too. Like, it doesn't mean that's their first thing. Like, it doesn't mean it's my first thing, opposite. But I think it's important that you make sure that you come to the table having done your research, having done the work, and not be solely focused on one specific facet. You need to ask and learn, and ask and learn, and every job you learn something. And so it is my responsibility to make sure that there's somebody that's employed in the department that is black, brown, any of the minorities that are not getting the work, and make sure that they are part of our community so that they can build their resumes and they can become the hair designers. They can become more prominent in the industry. I hope that answers, and I hope I answered it in a way that is unoffensive and but honest about how I feel about it, and hope that we move forward in a way that is more inclusive. I I feel like I've been that way. I feel like I give opportunity to people. So I hope I have more opportunity to do that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Morgan. So I just got the go ahead from Ebony, and we're going to get some Q&A from the audience.
Okay, Kirby, I'm ready.
Ready? All right. I'm excited. I love audience interaction. I live for audience interaction.
There's like 3 people watching. I'm like, I don't know.
God, you have no idea. I'm just scrolling through questions right now. This is incredible.
Okay.
Actually, hold on. There is a Facebook question. Hi to Facebook. Thank you for tuning in. This is from Alexa, and she says, as an AD, I work very closely with the vanities. Do you pad your times because of certain personalities? Please know that you should be able to be honest with them. You are the first domino to fall for me to make my day after locations and transportation, of course. So seems like a comment and a question.
Yeah. So multiple parts to that. Do we pad our answers? Well, I can only speak for myself or colleagues that I work with that I know how we work. Generally, my padding has more to do with how do I think I'm going to be able to do something. So I can do it in 25 minutes. I say to you, I need 45 minutes. If it's the first person in the morning, let's hypothetically say, if I know I can do it in 25 minutes, and I might say it's 45 minutes because I know they're going to eat breakfast. I know that the director's going to come in and talk to that person. It happens every morning. And, I'm going to be the one left holding the bag. As the show goes on, I like to have a more closer relationship with the second, who is defining the schedules for the next day. And we get a better idea now together. We're like, yeah, now you and I both know I can do it in 25 minutes, but now you need to start padding it for me. So I like to do that in the beginning more, but it's less about not being honest. It's more about making sure I'm not holding the bag.
Totally. All right. This is from Robin, who is watching here on Zoom. I had no idea that you worked on True Detective. Have you worked on a lot of projects that are centered around such a masculine world?
Okay. Ooh, my phone. My phone's gonna ring 3 times. Let's see, masculine world. Yeah, that was. Sorry about the phone ringing. That was a particularly masculine project. You are right. And that was, I did the first season, only the first season. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that it was such a brutal job. It was so hardcore shooting in the swamps and in the blah, 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 blah. But I will tell you that I don't look at a project by way of if it's masculine or it's feminine or, does it have pretty dresses or not? I look at something by, is it exciting? And does it make my heart race when I read it? Like, is it so good? That's what gets me excited. So yeah, True Detective. Yeah.
True Detective's incredible. Thank you for that question, Robin. All right. Joan asked, what kind of resources do you use to research and construct the looks you create in period pieces? So you mentioned a little bit about this earlier, but is there anything you want to elaborate on?
Yeah, so the Margaret Herrick Library is the Academy's library that has just the most incredible research. You can look at films from, 1925 or 1972, and you can look at material and research and all of that there. I also will always look at maybe the newspapers of that particular era within 10 years before and 10 years after. I don't believe that you do a project and that's a period piece. And if it takes place in 1970, that you do hair that is 1970. I think you do hair that's 1963. And I think you do hair that's 1972, because everybody's a little bit different. It'll be a little bit more consolidated because you didn't have social media, but you try and take that into account. And then, magazines and, I'll use a Pinterest board and films. I will almost always go to the Academy's list and look at what won Best Picture that year, who was nominated for the Best Actress or the Best Director, and look at those material to help influence me in, just to give it texture. You want texture.
So much fun. I want to just spend like a week with you, my with Morgan. That'd be great. Okay, Hermione. Thank you for this informative Q&A. You're so welcome. Morgan is incredible. I just want to spend another hour or two with you. Okay, she says, oh, sorry. She said she didn't want to be on camera. Don't worry, we're not putting you on camera. Okay. How important is it for hair and makeup artists in the film and television industry to have experience or training working with multi-ethnic hair and skin tones? We kind of covered this. Is there anything you wanted to elaborate on, Morgan?
If we're talking about experience, I mean, every job is your experience. Every job is your learning curve. Every job is your opportunity to learn more, to do the research on that particular aspect. I didn't know how to do wigs. I had to learn. And there was the film that was like the film that changed everything for me. I mean, you will have the moment and you will have the building block, and it's your slow accumulation of the body of work and learning every single time and never passing anything up. And that means getting magazines in your hands and looking through a magazine. That does not necessarily mean that going on Instagram is your only option. You need to look at fashion and you need to look at the news. I mean, both things play. So.
Yes, fashion and beauty, I feel like go hand in hand with your work. So
Yeah.
it makes me happy. This is from an anonymous attendee.
Ooh.
Say, I'm a cosmetologist. Is it a good idea to have a barber's license slash dual license?
Doesn't matter. Your licensing basically is just it's kind of like having a driver's license. It only lets you drive. You can be a really crappy driver, or you can be a race car driver, but it's only your license. And your trajectory to learn begins the moment you have your cosmetology license, because now you start learning.
Great. All right, from Cassidy, what advice would you give someone who is beginning their career in the industry? I'm to kind of piggyback off that. Like, what's the one piece of advice you would have given your former self when you were first getting started?
Right. Oh God, I was so squirrely. I would say, it's just, I think I've been saying it, you got to do the research, you got to be open to learning, you've got to be humble. I would say to myself, looking back, to just take it easy on yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. Have a voracious appetite to learn and be interested, but don't be so hard on yourself. You know, every moment isn't the end of the career if you do something wrong, you know. Ask for help. Look around you.
I needed to hear that myself, so thank you.
Mhm.
What is your favorite genre to work in?
Oh gosh, genre. You know what? I just love a good story. I don't really have a good, well, you know what? I mean, I love fashion so much that there are certain eras, I guess, that, you know, that I would love to do. Like, wouldn't it be great to do like a romantic comedy that took place like in the 30s, like, you know, with the quick repartee and that cool hair, but like make it look kind of modern or something? I don't know. Genre. I don't know. I don't really have a favorite genre. I just love movies. I just love movies.
Okay, this is from Kelly. She says, I'm a writer and I listen to Script Notes podcast from writers John August and Craig Mazin. And Craig is always preaching to us writers hair, makeup, clothes when introducing characters. How do you react to a script when there is a specific description about hair?
Um, well, that's probably the first thing that I have a conversation with the director. I will most specifically, I'll tell you what, Mrs. America, there was specific note. Dobby Waller wanted the scene in the hair salon in the beginning, and she wanted, with all the women talking, and she wanted the scene when Alice's character, Sarah Paulson, arrives at the convention to be in rollers. And I said, guess what happened right then? Hot rollers. Hot rollers changed the world of women in that year. We must show that that is when our turning point is for women. The quicker they could get things done. Let's show the passage of time here. Let's put her in hot rollers. So I think, wait, what the hell was the question? God dang it. What was it? I just rambled. That was ridiculous.
What do you what do you
Oh,
specific direction about hair?
the writer's like, the hairdresser just went off. Um, yeah, I talked to the director about it. I talked to the director about it, and sometimes the writer may need more interpretation on screen than what they even wrote. You know, like I just explained.
So Kelly, who asked this question, just responded and said that was a great answer. So
Well, good, Kelly.
okay, I think that about wraps things up. We've gone through all the questions and have learned so much. Morgan, you're incredible. I need you on my podcast. I want you to come and just share all of your hair secrets with me, please.
Anytime, Kirby. Anytime.
Awesome.
That
Okay.
was
So
fantastic. There's a comment on in the face, or excuse me, in the chat that says I could listen to details about hot rollers and the difference between blondes and different lights endlessly. I could too. Morgan, I could have you back for 17 of these sessions and we wouldn't get into like a third of what you know. And I'm just sad that we can't meet in person for a master class so we could, get like upcoming, emerging, newer hair designers just in a room with you so you could blow their minds with your knowledge. This has been so great. And Kirby, thank you for being such an amazing moderator for this chat. Before I wrap up, with the last few minutes that we have, I do want to ask you, Morgan, as I said when we started the event tonight, when you and I first started corresponding, you really made a point of saying like, there needs to be a change in the way that we consider below the line positions in the media. There needs to be more amplification of what we do. There needs to be more support for what we do. People need to know what we do, and what we contribute to sets. And it's, it should be part of the mission of organizations like Women in Film to help make that change in the industry. So what is your advice? What do you say to the members of this community, to the leadership of this community? How can we be part of that change of helping to make a difference for below the line folks?
I have I have a lot of strong thoughts on it after this much time in the industry, and having dealt with a constant of, you know, a constant misogyny that exists within our industry and just as women, right? And now as we try and have change, you know, I think um, the respect that I talk about for the below the line crafts, and this is something that I think is interesting on sets that exist in England. Crafts are more respected, and artists, like actors, aren't as elevated. It's a little bit more of an even balance between the two. Everyone is an artist and everyone is creating. It's the director that is having, you know, the overall is the kingpin, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I would say in moving forward, you know, I think it's important that women that are above the line, that have the power to have the respect and note what is, give the respect, excuse me, but can see on set how hard the female grip is working, how hard the camera girl that's loading, you know, for her 7th year in a row and still not being allowed to pull focus, or the you know, the hairstylist that has been there for 17 hours, the costumer that is picking up someone's underwear and in fact is so talented with their creativity and everything else, but they're doing everything. Mm-hmm. Like, we all deserve to respect each other. And I think as far as inclusion goes, you know, in that respect, I think, like you talked about, wouldn't it be cool that there's more forums where, you know, those of us who have the experience and or have accolades, or not just experience and bodies of work that we can share with others within our own craft, so that someone knows that they can do a job that they didn't know about before. You know, how do you get into it, and how do you do it, and what does that mean, you know? So I just think it's about sharing. And I so appreciate that you reached out to me, Ebony. It was like, you were like, oh no, guess what we're doing? And I was like, really? What do you do? And then you, like, you know, said, and I was like, well, that's really cool, because, you know, I love that there are other women that are below the line that you're helping to have voice here. And it does take the women that are in power, that are above the line, to share that. And I think the terminology and being referred to in my particular field as makeup artists and hairstylists, specifically hairstylists in film, is that is my craft. And although there is and please no disrespect to someone earlier who asked a question, who said something about vanities, you know, it's less respectful to say that I'm in charge of vanities, as though that someone only cares about how they look. Vanity infers that, and that's not because that person was trying to be disrespectful. It's just a common term that people turn to, and I think it would just it applies so in terms of giving people the respect. So I hope my long-winded answer is
it could have been much more. It wasn't long-winded at all. And, you know, I am so glad that we are being explicit about this conversation. I think we can only make so many, you know, nods towards, you know, inclusion and elevation, but if we're not actually, you know, helping people from the top down, as you say, change the atmosphere on their sets, and we aren't actually having these conversations so that people learn, like, yeah, the sets need to be much more integrated. We need to be much more holistic in our understanding of what it takes to create this magical piece of media that makes it to our screens. That everyone is contributing to what we're seeing and to what we're enjoying. So please come back. I would love for you to come back. This has been wonderful. Kirby, again, thank you for being such a fantastic
Kirby.
Thank you to everyone who submitted questions. I have enjoyed this more than you know. I do want to do a quick announcement. We will be having another wonderful event next Tuesday. We'll be talking about juggling parenthood as an entertainment industry professional. We're going to have a director, actors. We'll have, you know, legal advisors on there to talk about, you know, how do you make it work, especially in a period right now when you might be trying to homeschool 3 kids while also figuring out what does it mean to go back on set. So join us next Tuesday for that conversation. But for now, I'm going to let you all go so you can think about all of the accolades you need to be giving to creatives like Morgan and her peers for the incredible work that they've been doing to build the worlds that we love. Thank you again, Morgan, Kirby. Thank you to everyone who's been here, and good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.